Good Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers.
Right now on Morning News Now, hammered. As the work week gets underway, millions of Americans from Cape May to Cape Cod digging out from this weekend's record-breaking nor'easter. Thousands still without power as bitterly cold temperatures grip several states this morning. Our Bill Cairns is here with the possibility of yet another winter storm later this week. Pressure's on, a geopolitical showdown taking place here in New York this morning. Officials from the U.S., Ukraine, and Russia set to discuss heightened military tensions in Eastern Europe at a UN Security Council meeting today. Some cautiously optimistic.
I think we may move toward a solution to this, and I hope we do soon.
Stakes meeting as the world's most powerful leaders grapple with how to respond to Russian aggression. Also this morning, countdown to Beijing. Final preparations now underway in China for an Olympic Games mired in controversy. Hundreds of athletes from around the globe arriving to strict COVID rules. Concerns mounting over the virus's spread in the final days leading up to the opening ceremony. We'll bring you the latest from Beijing. Plus, celebrating an icon exactly 1 month since the world lost Betty White. A brand new tribute to America's Golden Girl set for prime time on NBC tonight. The star-studded event honoring one of television's most beloved stars. And a chance to see some of it already. You really get to hear from the people who knew her best, who worked with her for years, just candidly talking about this legend.
Just the tributes that we keep on hearing. I mean, they're all just, they could not be more glowing.
She was beloved by us. She was beloved by those who knew her best.
Absolutely, yeah.
More on that in a little bit. We're going to begin this hour with the latest on that massive snowstorm that pummeled the Northeast this weekend, impacting millions of Americans, leaving some areas with several feet of snow.
Yeah, this morning the freezing cold is making digging out even more difficult for everyone getting ready for their morning commute. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park has the latest from Boston.
With the snow falling at a rate of 2 to 3 inches an hour, the snow piles up really quickly. All across Boston today, we are staring at these massive snow piles, some standing more than 5 feet tall. And today it really is a race to clean up as the work week begins.
This morning, millions in the Northeast waking up to a deep freeze. And for those still without power, the situation could be dangerous. This weekend's record-setting nor'easter with heavy snow and powerful winds, creating blizzard conditions in parts of 10 states.
The last 36, 48 hours have been freezing, windy, and just treacherous.
It took me about an hour just for my first car.
In Massachusetts, some spots recorded more than 30 inches of snow. And Boston tied a record for the highest snow total in one day with nearly 2 feet. At the height of the storm, power outages impacting roughly 100,000 across the state. Utility crews lined up for gas on Cape Cod as they rushed to get customers back online. Homes along the shore took a beating from high surf and extreme winds. Freezing temperatures turned Saturday's floodwaters into ice the next day, while the sea spray on these homes also froze over. In Rhode Island, bus drivers digging out for hours to get ready for the school week ahead.
We want the kiddos to be able to get to school and on school on time.
The winter weather taking a tragic turn, too. At least 4 dead on New York's Long Island. 3 of them died while shoveling snow. Hours of treacherous conditions paralyzing travel from Maryland to Maine and forcing airlines to cancel more than 5,000 flights over the weekend.
Heading to Dallas, so hopefully, cross our fingers, we'll make it.
The historic snow day may have disrupted most weekend plans, but incredibly, not this outdoor wedding in Rhode Island.
I now pronounce you husband and wife.
One couple deciding a blizzard wouldn't get between their vows.
Yesterday we got some sunshine, but today folks are waking up to some of the coldest air of the year. Here in Boston, it will only stay in the 20s. And also worth noting, Boston Public Schools will be open today. Back to you.
Wow. All right, Kathy Park, thanks so much. What a brave couple. And as the Northeast continues to dig out from the weekend snow, there might be another system on the way later this week. Let's get a check on that.
Bill Cairns is with us. Bill, good morning.
Yeah, it's that time of winter where it's what's next. Usually the end of January and the first 2 weeks of February are when we have our major big storms. This happens every year. Usually we get 2 or 3 of them. We got one back-to-back here. So already we have about 30 million people already in winter storm watches. This means that you're expecting winter weather. Be prepared within the next 2 to 3 days. It's going to start in Colorado and spread right through the middle of the country, and we'll add a lot more people to this. Eventually, we're going to get some of this winter weather into Oklahoma and Texas and possibly even northern Arkansas, too. So here's how it's going to play out. This will be a cross-country storm. It begins in the northwest, powerful cold front, and then a new storm develops along that front, and that's where we're going to get the major problems as that cold air heads down towards the warm air coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. It's kind of a recipe for a big ice storm, too, especially Oklahoma, maybe southern Missouri, southern portions of Illinois. The northern edge of that will be a snowstorm, and then this will slowly head towards the northeast. At this point, it looks to be warm enough for just a rain event for Raleigh, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, Boston, but then it will get colder as the storm goes on. It could end as a bout of snow and ice also. So right now, the highest snowfall totals are expected from just north of Oklahoma City, Missouri, central Missouri, just south of Kansas City, just north of St. Louis. Chicago should get into some heavy snow, Indianapolis and Detroit too, and eventually portions of northern New England. And what's our confidence level in the ice? The highest confidence is central Oklahoma, southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, and then just south of that heavy snow, right along the Ohio River towards Indianapolis and Columbus, we could be dealing with a pretty significant ice storm. So that's not pretty and not fun. And as far as our computers go, pretty good agreement. This is our European model. The purple shows you the heavy snow, and it's very similar on our American GFS model. So we have high confidence in that heavy band of snow through the Midwest, guys. So for today, it's just very cold, and we're setting the stage for our next major winter storm.
So much to look forward to there, Bill. Thank you so much.
Woo!
All right, see you in a bit. Now, the threat of a Russian invasion of Ukraine is taking center stage at the United Nations today. The UN Security Council will meet at the request of the United States to discuss Russia's military buildup at the border. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is on the ground in eastern Ukraine with the latest.
Diplomatic efforts continue today to try to resolve the crisis in Ukraine. There is a UN Security Council meeting at the United States' request, and Russia confirmed that its foreign minister will meet U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken tomorrow. But so far, there are no signs Russia is backing down.
Russia is keeping its troops on the move and the world guessing. This time, it's anti-submarine drills in the Norwegian Sea. Norway is a NATO member. Russia has roughly 130,000 troops and tanks, warships and missiles at the ready near Ukraine's borders. In Ukraine's capital, Kiev, veterans are training civilians in combat. But Ukraine's President Zelensky says he doesn't think Russia will invade. Russia insists it won't. In Ukrainian frontline cities like Mariupol, close to the Russian border, people are getting nervous. At a church service here, Ukrainian Orthodox, the bishop urges people to have faith and pray for the Ukrainian military. As the congregation leaves, Maria plays a bandura to keep their spirits high. Maria volunteers in the church's soup kitchen, in part to keep her mind off the situation. She's having trouble sleeping. I am really worried, she says. My father is in the military. We are afraid to lose him, afraid to lose our Ukraine, and afraid for our lives. But eastern Ukraine is divided. Outside of Mariupol lives Serhiy. He's pro-Russian, a former milk truck driver who now lives on a $90 a month pension. His home is directly across a river from an area held by pro-Russian separatists. Serhiy is nostalgic about the old Soviet Union, when everyone had a job, and he felt proud to be part of an empire. I think the authorities here have to change, and laws should work, but they don't. So people think it's worse here than in Russia.
Here in the far east of Ukraine, it's unclear how many people are pro-Russian and how many are pro-Ukrainian. For Vladimir Putin, there is no ambiguity. He believes that all of Ukraine must be reunited into the Russian fold. The only question is, will he try and do that by force? Richard Engel, NBC News, Chermalik, Ukraine.
All right, thanks, Richard. Now, President Biden's search for a Supreme Court nominee is well underway. There are now more than a dozen candidates reportedly under consideration to replace Justice Stephen Breyer after he retires at the end of his term. The president has vowed to select a black woman to fill the seat, and at least one candidate is drawing praise from a key Republican senator. NBC News senior congressional correspondent Garrett Haake has the latest from Washington.
President Biden has promised to make his selection for the seat by the end of February to let the Senate then get to work on confirming her. But lawmakers in both parties are already debating who they think the pick should be and what that pick will say about the country.
As the president's Supreme Court nominee search heats up, Democrats are planning an ambitious confirmation timeline.
It's going to be fair, it's going to be deliberate, and we're going to be timely about it, too.
The president is considering more than a dozen candidates, including Judge J. Michelle Childs, a federal judge in South Carolina. Childs has the backing of key Biden ally, Congressman James Clyburn. And on Sunday, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham signaled she may get bipartisan support.
She's highly qualified, she's a good character, and we'll see how she does if she's nominated. But I cannot say anything bad about Michelle Childs. She is an awesome person.
Other potential candidates include California Supreme Court Justice Leandra Kruger and Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, confirmed last year to the D.C. Circuit with bipartisan support.
Then the committee knows quite a bit about that person, and that can be taken into consideration.
Meanwhile, Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker is under fire for comparing the president's promise to nominate a black woman to affirmative action.
The irony is that the Supreme Court is at the very same time hearing cases about this sort of affirmative racial discrimination,
yes,
and while adding someone who is the beneficiary of this sort of quote.
The White House pushing back, recalling similar pledges by Republican Presidents Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump to nominate women, writing in part, quote, "President Biden's promise is in line with the best traditions of both parties and our nation." But a new poll finds 76% of Americans say Biden should consider all possible nominees, not only black women. Senator Susan Collins claims the president's pledge is politicizing the process.
I believe that diversity benefits the Supreme Court, but the way that the president has handled this nomination has been clumsy at best.
No matter who President Biden selects, she will make history if confirmed. A 50-50 Senate like this one has never confirmed a Supreme Court justice before. The White House knows they'll need every Democratic vote here, and they're keeping a close eye on Republicans like Susan Collins and Lindsey Graham, hoping that their nominee can get bipartisan crossover support.
All right, Garrett Haake, thank you so much. And now to the latest on the pandemic and concerns over the so-called stealth variant. It comes as some experts say we appear to be past the latest wave of Omicron infections. We want to bring in Dr. Mario Ramirez. He's an emergency physician and the former pandemic and emerging threats coordinator in the Office of Global Affairs. Dr. Ramirez, always great to have you with us. So, look, I think we've all been kind of holding our breath thinking, is there going to be another variant? Are we at the end of this? So tell us about this stealth variant. I mean, what we know so far is it's about 1.5 times more contagious than Omicron. It's already circulating in about half of the U.S. as far as we know. Should we be concerned, and how could this impact recovery from this current wave?
So I think things are still okay, Savannah. You know, I think the main thing that people need to hear, right, are that when we see a new variant or a subvariant in this case, there are two things that we take a close look at. So the first is whether it appears to be more virulent and cause more severe disease. And the second is whether it's more transmissible. And so on the first question, based on the data that we've seen so far, at least, it does not appear that BA2 or the stealth variant causes disease that's more severe than that caused by Omicron, which already looks to be much better than what we saw with Delta. So the second question, though, whether it's more transmissible, is something that we're still studying, but it looks like it's probably a bit more infectious than the original variant, BA1 from Omicron. Now, what that means, right, and I think everybody is starting to feel like maybe making predictions about some of these variants is getting more difficult, is that it's possible in areas where the case counts may go even higher than they would have otherwise done from BA1 alone, or that it's possible because it's more transmissible that more and more people may get infected over a longer period of time. And so rather than seeing that really sharp sort of hairpin turn that we saw in South Africa with BA1, it's possible that this may spread out a little longer and last a little longer. But the good news is that if you're vaccinated or you're boosted, you still have very good protection against this particular subvariant.
All right, doctor, now I want to ask you about testing. So the Biden administration is buying 1 billion rapid antigen tests to ship to American homes. This influx comes on the heels of that revised federal guidelines, the ones that kind of confuse people, that shorten the isolation period to 5 days after symptoms started or a positive test. But what happens if you still test positive after a 6th day? So what do people need to know here in terms of isolating, what symptoms mean, that type of thing?
So the short answer to your question is that if you test positive on day 6, you should still continue to isolate for 5 additional days. The way that these rapid antigen tests are set up, they're essentially set up to detect a certain amount or a certain threshold of live virus that produces the protein that these tests pick up. And so what that means is that if you're still testing positive on day 6, it's extremely likely that you still have a high level of circulating virus in your bloodstream and therefore are infectious to other people. So CDC's guidance was that if after day 5 you were feeling better, that you could go out as long as you were wearing a mask. But the truth is that if you're still testing positive on day 6, it's highly likely that you're still pretty infectious to other people, and you should continue to stay home for 5 more days.
All right, Dr. Mario Ramirez, as always, thank you so much for your time. And if you have a question for one of our doctors, you want to ask him something, please let us know. Email us at morningnewsnow@NBCUNI.com and let us know if you want to stay anonymous. Ask us anything. And coming up on this hour of Morning News Now, we'll take you to Beijing in the final days before the Winter Games kick off. Hundreds of athletes now descending on China's capital city met with new COVID rules and protocols. Plus, combating a hunger epidemic in some of the most remote parts of Afghanistan as the Taliban's rule molds a nation in economic freefall. Those stories are next. Welcome back. We're now just days away from the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics. Athletes from around the world have begun to arrive in Beijing for an Olympics set to be unlike any other. And with strict COVID restrictions in place, it's not been an easy start for Team USA. NBC News foreign correspondent Janice Mackey-Fair is in Beijing for us. Hey, Janice.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Well, with the Olympics set to open at the end of this week, athletes, officials, journalists, they've been arriving to this world of restrictions that China has put in place to keep tight controls over COVID and over criticism.
Team USA arriving to China and entering Beijing's Olympic closed loop. A surreal world of white suits, daily COVID tests, and rigid restrictions that are bent on total separation of Olympics participants from the actual host city.
Because they are working so well, I believe we can be confident that the Games will go ahead safely.
But inside the bubble, cases are already on the rise among athletes who face isolation, then need 2 negative tests or they can't compete. It's why U.S. bobsledder Josh Williamson didn't board his flight to China. On Instagram, confirming he tested positive Sunday, saying this has not been an easy pill to swallow. Williamson adding he still hopes to get a later flight to the Games. With preparations in full swing for the opening ceremony just days away, Beijing is also in full emergency mode. Neighborhoods locked down after a spike in COVID cases here, the highest in 18 months, and travel bans impacting Chinese New Year when millions are usually on the move.
At the edges of the closed loop, there are buffer zones like this, but anything beyond the barrier is inside the bubble. I'm within waving distance, but there's no crossing over.
A Winter Olympics during a pandemic was always going to be a challenge for China's leaders, who face intense criticism over human rights and scrutiny over state surveillance. Even the snow and ice are coming under fire, all artificially made in an area of water scarcity.
Got a nice little view.
With all the caveats of competing in a zero COVID country.
So excited to finally be here.
Just being in Beijing feels like a win for U.S. curler Chris Plies.
Every athlete that's competing here, I think, has obviously put a lot of effort into staying as safe as they can.
With the world's attention turning to China and a Winter Olympics like no other.
There are no foreign spectators at these games. Most Chinese fans aren't going to be allowed either. And for the opening ceremony on Friday at the Bird's Nest, it will be a limited audience by invitation only. 4 COVID tests are required for anyone attending. But organizers say it's what they need to do in order to keep people safe.
Ooh, all right. 4 COVID tests. Janice, thank you so much. Let's now take a look at what else is making news around the world this morning. Ali Arouzi is back with us this hour. Hey, Ali.
Good morning, Savannah. Authorities in the United Arab Emirates say they intercepted and destroyed a ballistic missile outside of a residential area and that the attack didn't cause any losses. It's the third such attack this month by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. This morning's launch took place during the Israeli President Herzog's ongoing visit to the UAE. An Israeli spokesman said that the president and his entourage were in no danger. Heavy rains in Sao Paulo, Brazil, have triggered floods and landslides that have claimed the lives of at least 19 people, including 7 children. Some 500 families have also been left homeless across the state. Since December, heavy rains have wreaked havoc in northern Brazil, claiming the lives of many and delaying or ruining harvests. And finally, everyone's favorite marsupial, the koala bear, just got $35 million from the Australian government to help protect its habitat. Koalas, one of Australia's most recognized and loved icons, have been decimated by wildfires, disease, and vehicles. The money will go towards habitat restoration, studying the population, and expanding research on koala health. And those are your international headlines.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, good to see that, definitely. Ali, thank you so much. It has been 5 months since the U.S. military pulled out of Afghanistan in a chaotic withdrawal that saw the Taliban sweep to power. Since then, aid has dried up, fueling a devastating humanitarian crisis that has left millions facing starvation. NBC News foreign correspondent Kelly Kobieya traveled to Afghanistan for a closer look at the desperate situation and a warning some viewers may find the images in this report distressing.
Where even seasoned aid workers say they're shocked by just how quickly the situation has spiraled here in Afghanistan. We spent a day with UNICEF to see how some of this country's children are coping. We drove 2 hours. The car in front are Taliban security. Traveling with UNICEF to some of the most remote parts of Afghanistan where few cameras have been. And where UNICEF is trying to save those most at risk this winter. Children. Salam alaikum. These boys and girls keeping warm in a UNICEF-funded school. The worry, what happens when they go home?
And so when we say, did you have breakfast today? And they shout, yes, their breakfast.
They probably mean black tea and bread. And lunch, if they're lucky to have lunch.
The UN says more than half of Afghans can no longer afford enough food, and it's having a disastrous effect. At the local hospital's neonatal wing, all 6 tiny babies are here because they're underweight, born to malnourished mothers.
About 300 or 350 women come for delivery here per month.
And are many of them now malnourished or undernourished?
Most of them.
Most of them?
Most of them are malnourished.
In the hospital's child malnutrition ward, all of the beds are full. 2-year-old Nisar Ahmed weighs just 17 pounds, almost half of healthy boys his age. His mother, Sakina, told me she's worried about her other children, still at home and hungry. What can we do, she tells me. This is our life. I pray that the government will help us. Today, kids are playing in the snow, sledding on plastic jugs used for cooking oil. The roadside bombs and nighttime raids of war are gone, but so is the flow of foreign aid. And the U.S. has frozen more than $9 billion in Afghan assets.
23 million people in this country need urgent humanitarian aid, and all chapters of the UN here in Afghanistan are trying to come together to shore up a country.
You said this was unprecedented.
It is unprecedented. It's overwhelming. The needs are extraordinary, and it needs an extraordinary response.
UNICEF says the Taliban is giving aid workers, including women, access to every corner of the country, even helping to hand out supplies, like in this warehouse in Kabul, where 400 families took home rice, wheat, and winter clothes. 9-year-old Hamid Amar told me he came here to collect food for his brother and sisters. This classroom, one of more than 7,000 community schools funded by UNICEF across the country, a refuge for tens of thousands of girls and boys. Do you like school? Whoa. But the need is endless.
It's difficult to see children in the snow with no socks, no winter boots. It's a hard place to be a child, but UNICEF is here trying to make it a little bit better.
The U.S. has already donated more than $700 million in humanitarian aid to Afghanistan, bypassing the Taliban, going straight to aid agencies. But UNICEF alone is appealing for more than $2 billion. That's its biggest humanitarian appeal in its history.
Thanks to Kelly Kobiea for that report. Coming up on this hour of Morning News Now, a Sunshine State cold snap as the National Weather Service issuing a rather peculiar warning. Watch out for falling iguanas. We're going to explain why.
Plus, turning plastic pollution into priceless works of art with Mother Nature as inspiration. Those stories are up next. Welcome back. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln has changed its mascot logo to remove a hand gesture associated with a common white power symbol. The original logo showed their mascot, Herbie Husker, making an OK hand gesture, a pointer finger and thumb connected in a circle with the remaining three fingers standing up. That gesture has been co-opted by white nationalists in recent years. The new logo features Herbie Husker posed with just one finger up, as you can see here, signifying a number 1, according to the university's athletics department. The Anti-Defamation League added the OK hand gesture to its hate on display database back in 2019, but they cautioned that the symbol itself isn't a reason to believe someone might hold white supremacist ideas, as it's a common gesture that's been used for centuries.
Well, much of the East Coast is digging out from that historic winter storm this morning. People as far south as Florida are also battling record cold temps, and the deep freeze is causing many to cry out, leaping lizards. NBC News correspondent Carrie Sanders reports from Fort Lauderdale with the story of icy iguanas.
When temperatures drop into the 30s and 40s in South Florida, you got to look up, because what might also drop are iguanas, literally.
As the Northeast recovers from that winter wallop, this morning, Floridians are also dealing with a deep freeze and something else falling from above. Frozen iguanas.
Completely frozen.
We'll see.
He ain't moving.
As temps dip into the 40s, these cold-blooded reptiles go into shock, unable to grip their perch in trees.
Do iguanas fall out of trees when it's cold outside? Yes, they do.
The National Weather Service even issuing a falling iguana forecast for South Florida.
When you have temperatures going down that low, what happens is their body literally shuts down. They get into almost a coma type of situation.
Oh my God, y'all, he's frozen.
Residents encountering the cold-stunned creatures everywhere.
You got the iguana thunder, we call it here, right? They fall out of the trees and onto your roof, and you hear the barrels.
Growing to 6 feet long, iguanas are originally from around the equator, but were brought into Florida as pets years ago. When some were set loose, they multiplied, quickly becoming a public nuisance.
They'll feed on every flower you have in the garden. They burrow onto roads, they burrow into seawalls.
Some trappers using this opportunity to catch them.
If they're nice and slow, that's prime opportunity.
While sympathetic animal lovers may try to warm them up, experts say hands off. When startled, iguanas can bite, and it's also illegal to warm them up and then release them.
Wildlife officials say that if you do warm up an iguana, you can't then release it. You need to take it to a wildlife facility, because releasing it is essentially putting an invasive species back into the environment. And here in South Florida, it's estimated there are at least 20,000 iguanas.
Wow.
All right. Learned a lot there.
Yeah,
Sanders,
absolutely.
thank you.
For it being illegal, there was lots of video of people picking them up and holding them and testing them out. Yeah, right. Don't do that anymore. Yeah. All right, now the dangers of plastic harming our environment is becoming a more and more serious issue. Well, now new art is using pieces of plastic waste to explore our fragile relationship with nature.
Yeah, it's an installation called Earth Poetica, and it's a massive globe made of metal, bamboo, and plastic pollution. It opens in Jerusalem next week before making its permanent home in the World Trade Center complex here in New York next year. We have the creator of that piece, Beverly Barkett, joins us now. Beverly, good to have you with us. I mean, this is such a fascinating and timely piece of art. Tell us, what was your intention in making Earth Poetica, and tell us about that title.
First of all, thank you for hosting me. This is a great honor for me. The title actually came from Ars Poetica. Ars Poetica is poetry about poetry, writing about poetry. And then it went on to being a movement of art about art. And now I've taken it to Earth about Earth. So if we don't change the way we behave with Earth in the future, this is what we're doing. We're suffocating ourselves.
Absolutely.
Bottom line, Earth Poetica.
We love that. And now some of the panels that we could see there, we were just showing them, almost look like stained glass, like something you would see in a cathedral, in a church. Tell us how you did that. How did you create that effect? And where are you getting all this plastic?
The effect comes from soya-based resin that I found, and I combine it with the plastic that I've collected over 3 years, more or less, throughout the time of this project itself. What happened was, before COVID, I would travel around the world exhibiting and collecting my own plastic waste that I've used or found or from different locations. And then COVID broke out and I wasn't able to go anywhere. But people who heard about the project from different locations started sending me parcels with plastic waste, their plastic waste that they used or that they found. So in my studio, I have different boxes with different addresses from all different places around the continent with the plastic waste.
Wow.
Truly a worldwide effort there. Now, tell us where specifically people can see this piece if they're in Jerusalem, and what is it you hope that audiences get out of it?
So in the beginning, it'll leave Jerusalem being exhibited in the Gottesman Aquarium for the minimum of half a year, but we'll see how that goes because they're building a brilliant educational program around the project. They bring a lot of classes to show. They bring, and they're actually creating a step-by-step, how does an artist go from just plastic waste to the plastic that they can see in front of them and the whole project. So there's two different things here. One, people who wouldn't go to museums are actually going to come in front of art and feel art and see art for maybe the first time. And then they'll be able to be educated on the problem itself, the worldwide problem that we have with the plastic art, with the plastic waste that we're all accumulating simultaneously.
Beverly, thank you so much for your time this morning. Just beautiful what you're doing there. So cool for people who do get to see it. Thank you for joining us.
Look forward to seeing it in New York, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. World Trade Center. I welcome you all there.
See you there. Great. Thank you so much. And coming up on Morning News Now, Spotify's COVID conundrum, how the music streaming giant is now responding to complaints of vaccine misinformation on the app in the wake of that Joe Rogan controversy.
Plus, a swath of new COVID policies set to take effect this week in California. Could they end up serving as a model for the rest of the country in the coming months? We're going to take you through it next. Time for our CNBC Money Minute, the biggest financial headlines of the day and why they matter to you.
Silvana Henao is back with us. Hey, Silvana.
Hey, guys. Good morning. President Biden will meet with the ruling leader of Qatar at the White House today as the West faces a prospect of a European energy crunch if Russia invades Ukraine. Qatar played a key role in aiding the U.S. military evacuations in Afghanistan last year. It also hosts the biggest American airbase in the Middle East and is one of the world's largest producers of natural gas. Burger King, Denny's, and Domino's are among the restaurant chains who are trimming parts of their value menus to try to improve margins. The Wall Street Journal says executives hope this will bring less pushback from customers than straight price increases. McDonald's is letting franchisees sell sodas for higher prices after promoting drinks nationally for $1 for several years. Denny's is promoting fewer low-cost items. Restaurant prices rose 6% year over year in December, the biggest increase in nearly 40 years. And it's getting more expensive to go out these days. The price of the average concert tickets are on track to set a record high as giant names like Billie Eilish and The Weeknd hit the road. Tickets for sporting events are also higher. NBA and NHL games cost roughly $100 a seat, according to SeatGeek. In the secondary market, the average resale price is up nearly 30% for sporting events and 45% for concerts since the start of the pandemic, guys.
Wow. Yeah.
Getting pricey.
Cheap,
yeah.
should you decide to venture out. All right, Silvana, thank you so much.
You got it.
Now, the controversy over Spotify's top podcaster, Joe Rogan, is ramping up as more artists join Grammy winner Neil Young in accusing the platform of propagating COVID misinformation. Now, Spotify is announcing it will be making changes, but axing Rogan is not one of them. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa has been following this feud, and she joins us live with the latest. Hi, Emily. What is Spotify saying?
Hey there. A lot to break down this morning. Both Spotify and Joe Rogan speaking out. Spotify CEO says it's important they're not a content censor, but acknowledges they need to do more to provide balance when it comes to medical information. Overnight, Joe Rogan agreeing to help with that goal. Whether that will slow the number of artists leaving the music streamer, only time will tell.
Do you think it's safe to get vaccinated?
This morning, Joe Rogan speaking out.
I don't always get it right.
Responding to backlash against his popular podcast, where he's known for questioning vaccine safety, and recently interviewed a controversial virologist who suggested Americans were hypnotized into getting vaccinated.
And I'm interested in having interesting conversations with people that have differing opinions.
Rogan offering to make some changes as powerful celebrities put pressure on the streaming service.
Whenever I get something wrong, I try to correct it. If there's anything that I've done that I could do better is have more experts with differing opinions right after I have the controversial ones.
Now, Spotify says it's going to add a content advisory to any podcast episode discussing COVID-19, directing people to expert information on the virus, which Rogan says he supports. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle chiming in. Their organization, Archwell, says it's expressing concerns with Spotify to ensure changes to its platform are made to help address this public health crisis. Archwell Audio will continue its exclusive partnership with Spotify, in contrast to the wave of musicians stripping original recordings from the platform. Rock icon Neil Young says his record company is losing 60% of my worldwide streaming income in the name of truth. The expanding revolt now includes singer-songwriter Joni Mitchell and Bruce Springsteen's guitarist Nils Lofgren. Plus, best-selling author Brené Brown, who signed a multi-year deal with Spotify in 2020, tweeting she will not be releasing any podcasts until further notice, though not saying why. Professor of pop culture Robert Thompson says for Spotify, navigating this controversy is a business decision.
When they are looking for ways to maximize income, the podcast is clearly a direction in which they're going, and Joe Rogan is the standing on the top of the heap example of that direction.
And in the meantime, we're seeing Spotify's rivals pouncing on the controversy. Apple Music, for example, calling itself the home of Neil Young. We should mention Rogan hasn't directly responded to our requests for comment, but has previously said people shouldn't look to him for medical advice. Savannah.
All right, Emily, thank you so much.
Big changes are on the way for people in San Francisco, which has been one of the most restrictive cities around the country when it comes to mask mandates. But starting tomorrow, some of those restrictions are going to be lifted. NBC's Jake Ward joins us now from the Bay Area. Jake, good morning to you. So what's changing tomorrow and what led to this decision?
Well, Joe, since the very beginning of this pandemic, we have been known for a culture of masks. We simply wear them everywhere. But here in downtown San Francisco, it is going to be possible for people in stable cohorts, that is the language used by the Department of Public Health here, to take off their masks indoors. Stable cohorts is basically any recurring group of people who meet the big condition, which is being boosted, not just vaccinated, but boosted. And there are enough people here in San Francisco, more more than 65% of people here in this city are boosted at that point, and that means people going to gyms, people going to offices like the downtown area where I'm standing can go maskless. The hope here, of course, is that these high vaccination rates are going to lead to this stage, and then this stage will mean hopefully something like a return to normal here in the Bay Area, Joe.
Interesting. The boost statistics in San Francisco higher than the overall vaccination numbers in many parts of the country. You spoke to a business owner there. What are they saying about the news?
Well, obviously, businesses here in San Francisco have been reeling. You know, downtown foot traffic is down by about 20% since the beginning of Omicron. It has just been tough times for anybody in a person-to-person business. So gym owners, as you can imagine, are incredibly relieved at this new measure. We spoke to the owner of one about what it's like to see the possibility of taking masks off for his customers. Here's how he described it.
We have seen such an excitement and kind of a celebration of folks being able to come back into their fitness communities and their gyms, not only for their physical health, but also for their mental health and for their connectivity with their friends and, again, their trainers. So we will still have a lot of people who will be more comfortable being in a mask, and we 100% welcome that. And whatever their comfort level is, we're psyched to be able to keep our doors open and to keep our folks safe. And most importantly, to get people back into the gym, focusing on their health and fitness, we're psyched to be able to do that.
Now, here in San Francisco, it will still be necessary for people in schools to wear masks. Mask mandates remain in place in places like restaurants and retail. And of course, across the rest of California, the statewide mask mandate is still in place. But the fact that California has managed to get this far here in the Bay Area is perhaps a good sign for the rest of the state and the nation beyond, Joe.
So, Jake, you mentioned the city's been very restrictive since the very beginning of the pandemic. Other parts of the country, we've seen resistance to mask mandates and other restrictions. What's the mood like there?
You know, it's amazing to be here in this culture of mask, wearing all of the time. I mean, really, there has just been no question about it since the very beginning of the pandemic. The Bay Area was the very first to lock down. Some of the big businesses and employers here were the first to send their people home. So from the beginning, this has really been a place of compliance with these public health measures. That same gym owner described it this way. Have a listen.
We're very fortunate in San Francisco that the majority of our population is very patient with this whole process. In fact, they're usually very cooperative, whether it be mask, whether it be vaccination, whether it be boosters. We're fortunate. I work with lots of folks and lots of gym owners around the nation who it is a much more touchy and a much more political subject for sure. We are so hopeful that February can finally give us a glimpse of that kind of New Year's rush that we've been waiting for. For boosters, our clients have been asking us to show their proof of booster since November.
So at this point, being able to remove the masks in a place that has been so strict about it for so long, hopefully holds out some hope for the rest of the state and the rest of the nation, Joe.
See if it becomes a model for some other places. Jake, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Still much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including a star-studded primetime tribute to America's Golden Girl 1 month after her passing.
Plus, the days of disco aren't dead yet, at least in the eyes of one Tennessee small business owner. The fashion-forward roller skates that are putting the hustle in, well, the hustle. That's up next.
It's been exactly 1 month since we lost the great Betty White, but the celebration of her long and extraordinary life and career continues tonight with a 1-hour special here on NBC. Many celebrities will be sharing their favorite memories and untold stories of the beloved actress, paying tribute with their words, even a song.
Thank you for being a friend. With a fresh take on that iconic Golden Girls theme song, Cher really is helping us turn back time. She's one of many celebrities celebrating Betty White, America's Golden Girl.
She was the most brilliant, kind, funny, amazing person.
With tributes from President Biden and White's many co-stars over the years, 1-hour special honors a decades-long career.
Most people don't even live 80 years. She had an 80-year career.
She goes back to literally the very beginnings
of television.
Just cue me and then stick a sock in it.
From Mary Tyler Moore,
I've only been to one surprise party in my life.
to the Golden Girls, to Hot in Cleveland.
Does anyone else smell pot? What are you, a cop? No. Then what's it to you? I tell everybody that'll listen.
Tonight's special features a clip from behind the scenes of that show.
There's no way I can say thank you enough, guys. It's such a privilege to come to work every day. Amen.
Oh, we love you, man.
And a rarely seen blooper.
Once you go BlackBerry.
Proof she didn't just make the audience laugh.
My favorite thing to actually watch these days are the bloopers. They just make me laugh so hard.
Ladies and gentlemen. Saturday Night Live legends also recalled their week with White.
And literally, I was like, hey, Betty, how you hanging in there? Really more of a polite question because she goes, I'm fine. I went back to the hotel, I had a hot dog and a vodka, slept great.
That diet apparently worked. She won an Emmy for her SNL hosting gig.
When I first heard about the campaign to get me to host Saturday Night Live, I didn't know what Facebook was. And now that I do know what it is, I have to say, it sounds like a huge waste of time.
Our love for Betty was matched only by her love for animals. Betty's friends have no doubt her tireless advocacy is now being rewarded.
I imagine her walking across that rainbow bridge, and every animal she has ever loved is there waiting for her, and Alan is standing right in the middle of all of them welcoming her.
Oh, that would be her heaven.
Yeah.
Betty White died just 17 days shy of her 100th birthday, but there is still so much to celebrate. Some of her friends have told me that's what she would want, a party, no tears. Tonight's special, by the way, airs at 10 p.m. Eastern on NBC, and it's going to stream on Peacock tomorrow, in case you're a cord cutter, like many of our viewers are.
How cool were those behind the scenes, the bloopers?
It's really cool. And there's going to be much more of that, too. So.
Yeah, and to get those moments after she's passed that still just make us laugh, things we've never seen before. It's just so neat. Yeah. All right, thanks, Joe. Now, finally this hour, the story of one Tennessee entrepreneur bringing disco back. She's taken plain roller skates and turned them into fashion on wheels for her company, Moonlight Roller. Our friend, NBC News Now anchor Aaron Gilchrist takes us to Chattanooga, where groovy skates are a booming business.
Adrienne Cooper's business is on a roll.
In our first year, we did roughly $4.5 million in gross revenue. This year, we're on track to do roughly the same.
But Cooper's entrepreneurial adventure hasn't always been coasting along. After serving in the Navy, Cooper worked as a caterer in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and in 2019 quit her job to pursue her dreams.
My goal was to open up an adult brick-and-mortar roller skating rink.
She started small, buying roller skates and planning pop-up rollerblade events under the company name Moonlight Roller. But then the pandemic hit.
And then suddenly overnight, all of those events were lost. Everything was canceled. I had pretty much poured my entire life savings into Moonlight. And then I just had all of these rental skates, about 500 pairs of rental skates that we designed, and nowhere to use the rental skates.
So Cooper took her plain skates and got creative. She designed her own fashion statement on wheels and called it the Moon Boot. Then she turned to social media to create some buzz.
But buzz and press and, likes on Instagram don't mean anything if people don't show up to buy your product.
At midnight on May 15th, 2020, the Moon Boot hit the market.
And that night, we sold almost every pair, made over $200,000 in one day. And it was like 12:30 in the morning, and I woke up my husband and was like, hey, you have to quit your job because I have to literally start a company tomorrow.
Today, Moonlight Roller is thriving. At 26 years old, Cooper has a skate shop in Chattanooga, is in the process of finally opening up a brick-and-mortar roller rink, and has plans to expand to other states. A labor of love that comes second only to her little boy at home.
Juggling motherhood and running a growing business, it kind of feels like I'm raising two toddlers at the same time. My business is turning 3 and my son's turning 4.
Cooper says there were moments when she didn't think Moonlight Roller would pick up speed.
All entrepreneurs are used to that feeling of what if it doesn't happen? What if it fails? What if people don't like my idea as much as I do? So I would go to sleep at night wondering if this was the right decision, if I was doing the right thing for my family, if I was going to fail and then have nothing to show for it for me or for my son.
But Cooper found the right formula for success: hard work, time management, and a little luck.
I have been incredibly lucky over the course of the last 2 years, just being able to chase my dreams shamelessly and be able to do the thing that makes me happier than anything in the world. This experience has taught me more, I think, than just about anything. So I'm incredibly thankful to be here.
Our thanks to Aaron for that story, who I thought maybe we were going to get to see riding the skates
next
in this story.
time.
Darn, we'll have to send him there.
Challenges out there, Aaron. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.